Hello there. I think we should be fine for now. I cross my fingers. Thanks, Spectrum. Hey, you canceled Disney. You canceled us too. The heck? No, it was Disney's fault. So
Sorry.
speaking of it was Disney's fault. Ahsoka, uh, very good. Again, very good episode. You know what? I'm happy because they've been consistent, and every episode has been good. And every episode, like especially this episode, now there's questions. I was like, why? Again, spoilers, guys. Come on, you get, you should know by now. So, like, who? The question that everyone was asking, who's Marek? And I'm still asking, who's Marek? Right? Was
Yes.
was he like Night Sister Smoke? Was he Palpy? You know how he moved into clone bodies, right?
Yes. Yes.
Who was he? Who was he? I know we're gonna get answers. I know we're gonna get answers. He's not.
Absolutely.
He's not just smoke. I mean,
No,
he
no,
was.
I didn't buy that for a second. It's green smoke, so I mean, yeah, the Night Sisters can raise up from the dead certain different people, but it has to be someone specific to be using the force abilities and the fighting style that it was. This isn't just some random
It's small. Oh, could be. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll find out. I know that we will find out. But this episode very good. I think the lightsaber fights were really really good, and I had a conversation with someone at work that said it's like, oh, they like kind of like spent too much time like posting and whatnot. It's like, dude, it's like this was like prequel lightsaber fights. Like that was very very intentional, and they were trying to evoke the prequels, and it looked good. Like visually was good. Everyone's good. And yeah, man, it's a good. Okay, talk about the opposite of the Flash, right? Because we were just done talking about it, where you know everything was off, and this everything falls in place, man. Again, props to Dave and the team because they've done what they done. Here's why it's super special, right? Is because they were able to bring the animated world to life and actually make it like almost like a seamless transition because it does feel like, and we talked about it before. You mentioned it that this is through and through like season 5 of Rebels. Like it does feel
yep.
like that, right? And wow, man, I'm gonna let you to it. You can talk about the ending, but there's many theories. We'll talk. Go ahead.
So much to love about this. And really it's just the return of just good lightsaber action in Star Wars. You know, people have been waiting. Like when we think of Star Wars, no offense to the gun wielding characters and the Mandalorian and these other things, love that. But there's something about this consistency of seeing characters fighting the way they did during the Jedi days that we saw in the prequels, right? And so seeing these characters not only fight with the lightsabers the way that they were, but also taking some of the stuff that we've seen in the animation form where like you probably remember this a bit, but there's a really I've referenced it probably before on the podcast, but there's a really amazing interview with Dave Filoni on the Star Wars show for specifically the Twin Sons episode, which is my personal favorite episode of Star Wars Rebels.
It's really good.
And it's because obviously my boy Kenobi's in it, right? But look, like that episode when you hear why Kenobi goes into the position that he does and adjusts, right? He first goes into the pose that he did the first time that he fought Maul and he lost, and then you see him smirk, and then he changes position again to the over the head move that he wants to do to strike him down. And Dave said, "Look, these characters are fighting the way samurai do, which is they are like 7 moves ahead before it's even happened. In their mind, the fight's already begun." And so you actually see that in the way that Ahsoka and even Balin, the way their specific fight, which was so good,
Oh, so good.
so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Like the dialogue, the confrontation, Balin dude straight up believes that Ahsoka is a terrible person. Like this is not just like good guy, bad guy, but I mean, he literally says like the innocents that have died because of you. I mean, he straight up believes that she is the villain in this. And obviously Ahsoka is there to end Thrawn and to, well, make sure Thrawn doesn't come back and to potentially save Ezra. But like when you see them in those positions, they keep adjusting and moving. That's because in their minds they're already preparing the moves they're going to make. This is literally something Dave has spoken about before. I heard 30 even say that like the fighting style of Balin is because he has his lightsaber at the heaviest feature, which is why like his moves, one strike is very heavy, very
Yeah.
similar to like the way Vader would fight in his style. It's just very fascinating all around, just that. And Obed, Huyang, having an action sequence that was
Yeah.
unexpected.
That was so
I
good.
loved it. I
Yeah.
think that would have been cool if he would have pulled out some lightsabers himself or something.
Go
Like that
go
would have
full
been
Grievous
crazy. Full
and
Grievous and start doing it. So, but I understand why they didn't. They probably didn't want to get people,
yeah.
start to just mentally check out. They
Yeah,
want to
but
keep it a
the
little bit,
punches and the blocking and all that, it was really good.
dude.
It was like
And then
you
he's
could.
like begging for help, and
It
he's
was
going,
very choreographed. Like the choreography for him was really well done.
yeah.
It was really well done. Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, people who are watching this and they have any issues with that, I don't know what they're talking about. The moment that Ahsoka went into the move over the head and the spell saber, this is the same thing in Tales of the Jedi.
yeah,
That's the same move that she does to take
yeah.
down this
The
Inquisitor.
Inquisitor. Yeah,
One strike dead. The same thing
yeah.
we see in Twin Sons, but with Kenobi, one
And,
strike dead.
and that's again to point out, right? The swinging the lightsaber around like a bad like Ray that has zero choreography. So you're just swinging lightsaber
Yeah,
around like a baseball bat, and now you have this refined lightsaber techniques that we hoped to see again, but we didn't, right?
yeah.
And I mean, thankfully, we're seeing it again. But yeah, yeah.
And then Shin pulling a Ra's al Ghul and throwing the smoke to
Oh,
leave with
yeah.
Sabine, bro.
Ninja
I was
vanish.
watching and I
Yeah,
was like, oh my gosh, this is a little Batman going on
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah,
Throws the smoke and disappears. I was like, okay, that's unexpected.
yeah.
Um, but obviously Sabine turning herself over, like that's obvious, guys. I mean, it wasn't just because yeah, she wants to save Ezra. I think that's what some people might easily just be trapped to believe. But let's face it, the moment that she would have shot the ball, gone, her head would have been separated from her body. Like she
Oh
would have
yeah,
died
yeah,
instantly. Like she would have killed, then they would have just done. So she had no choice but to do this either way. Now, I've been telling people that around me that have seen it, like it reminds me very much of Return of the Jedi where Luke turns himself, well, not the exact same, but Luke turns himself over to Vader, right? And
yeah.
together he ends up turning Vader to take against Palpatine. I think that she is going to get into Balin's head, and together they're going to turn. I think Balin dies,
Mm.
but they're going to turn on whether it be the Night Sister or just specifically Thrawn when Thrawn shows up. But also now we jump to the very very ending where you start talking about the world between worlds, and yeah, Ahsoka
And retconning the
died, right?
sequels.
The sequels, right? The whole theory, which we've
Yeah,
had that theory for a long time, being the
yeah,
way to reset things.
yeah.
Um, but who else would be the only person that's ever been to the world between worlds aside from Ahsoka? Ezra Bridger. Who is being on the way to get? Ezra Bridger. Like, makes too much sense because how else is she's not going to just walk in and walk out of this world. I think there's going to be some connection there for sure. But yeah, that world between worlds open. I'm gonna let you talk because
Yeah.
there's a lot of theories around that.
So, I will basically she falls off a cliff during the fight with Balin, and then she wakes up in the world between worlds, and she hears Anakin's voice, and she turns around and she sees Anakin, or is it right? But there's something's not quite right. But
Yeah,
we right now let's go ahead and assume that this is Anakin's Force Ghost that's projecting himself into the world between worlds, and a lot of theories out there is like she's dead and she's gonna somehow come back, right? I don't think that's the case, right? The I think what it is that that planet that they're at, it's has a strong connection to the Force, kind of like again the Sith Temple and Lothal and all these other places that they've been to before, and somehow Anakin returned. Somehow Anakin returned and helped Ahsoka get in there before she perished. Now, what and I'm really excited for the next episode, but what is she going to see? Is she going to see Luke's, like, I guess, downfall, or is she going to try and fix that? Is she going to try, because we know that, and it was established on Rebels, right? But they could change it, that you can't pick Kanan out of the moment he died, because that moment allowed them to survive, right? It allowed them to escape. So we may not get that. Maybe we'll get to see Kanan in some other place in time, right? But I'm just curious to see what they see for, like, forget about Rebels. Like, I want to see what they're going to see about Rey and about what happened to Luke and all that. That's what I'm more concerned about. Like, how are they going to reset this so they can rebuild? And that's what I'm more curious about. And again, knowing Palpatine and his, he's Palpatine is very powerful, and he can basically manifest in different ways through the Force, and maybe that's not Anakin, maybe it is Palpatine,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So um, it's going to be very interesting, and I'm very excited. I'm very excited because it's good, right? They're just not. It's yeah. And that's what gets me, right. It's like it's getting me excited about Star Wars again. And I told you, it's like they better nail it with Ahsoka, because that's probably gonna be my last, like, you know it's like when they get a credit downgrade. So Star Wars was
Yep.
gonna be it
Yep.
was gonna be downgraded from my number
Hmm.
one spot after that, right? There was no coming back. But Science of Life, and I'm happy that it's good. I'm enjoying it very, very much. I'm hoping that it stays the same. Again, hype for the next episode is through the roof, but go ahead and share some of those theories, man.
I love everything you said. I hope that you're right when it comes to the sequel stuff of her seeing that and getting to it. Personally, I don't expect it. But I hope you're right. Because I only we've only seen one true example of the world between worlds, and I've watched that episode from Rebels probably 4 or 5 times at least. And if you there's many moments that you hear the voices of moments throughout all of Star Wars history in that episode. Stuff from Rogue One, stuff from the from A New Hope, stuff from the prequels, whatever, but the doors that the characters went to were moments that were somehow connected directly to them. And so I would have to imagine if there's anything we're going to see, it could be a recreation of a moment from Rebels or Clone Wars. It would not shock me to see Anakin and Ahsoka go back to a Clone Wars moment. I would love to see Anakin and Obi-Wan in their Clone Wars battle armor and, with her on some type of mission and battle. Unfortunately, it was leaked beforehand. There was a audio, in a commercial that had gone out where we heard Anakin's voice prior, and he says something along the lines of, "In this battle, you will face more than droids, and you have to be strong, Ahsoka. I know you can do this," or something like that. So I'm sure we're gonna get that moment in this next episode, whatever that was being teased, and I'm sure it was cut up to not reveal certain things. But as it pertains to her being dead or alive, that's a really tough one because I am at the place, I think because of being burned so many times with Star Wars and having huge, crazy expectations, and it's not even like a quarter of the percentage of the things that I think even happen. Usually it's like so low and it's sometimes very like discouraging. But like if you want to get real sweaty, like so Ahsoka technically has died before. And I'm not talking about from what we saw in Rebels. I'm talking about Clone Wars. And for those of you that remember the Mortis episodes, you remember that Ahsoka technically gave her life, and the daughter of Mortis gave her life to bring
To bring
Ahsoka
us back.
back, right? And
Yeah.
so that's when you get the whole owls thing with Ahsoka, because the owl almost like represents the spirit of the daughter of Mortis that follows around Ahsoka, right, throughout all her adventures. You even see it in the finale of the last episode of Clone Wars when she looks up and she sees it flying around, and we see the owl with her when she's in the world between worlds. Now, that being one of the highest level of Force users, very limited knowledge as we know around the father, son, and daughter, you would have to guess that maybe she is now an immortal person herself because of this. That's just a theory, right? Why is Anakin there? Is it Anakin? I think you're onto something. There's some key details. One, he's wearing his outfit that we see from Revenge of the Sith, but two, he doesn't have the scar. He doesn't have the scar on his head.
Ah, yeah.
He does have his robot hand, which if he was a Force ghost, he would be completely whole. He wouldn't have a robot
So
hand, the same way we see in at the end of Return of the Jedi.
here's how I saw him, right? Because he doesn't look 100% Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
He looks more like an in between of like this is maybe a couple months
Clone Wars.
after Clone Wars, yeah.
Hmm?
So or after not Clone Wars, I'm sorry, Attack of the Clones, episode 2.
Okay. Okay.
So it's like an in between while it's she's seeing Anakin as as she saw him when they met the first time. So
Yeah.
he's not Revenge of the Sith Anakin yet, right? So he's like an in between. Um, yeah, yeah. So and again, this could be like force projection. You see whoever version of like the uh force user you remember, I guess. It's
Which
all, yeah.
which takes again, like I don't want to get too sweaty because I don't know like what to expect. But you start talking about the daughter of Mortis, let's talk about the son of Mortis. And the son of Mortis obviously was obviously an enemy of hers and just in general in the Force. If there's an immortal person that could be there, could be him, and he's a shapeshifter. He can make himself look like anyone. It wouldn't
Yeah.
surprise
Yeah.
me if that's the character.
Yeah.
We also I heard other people point this out, so I had to go back, turn on my Disney Plus, crank up the volume, put the subtitles, try and see if I can make anything out. But in the first episode, when Ahsoka's in the Night Sister Temple and she's turning the different thing around to
Oh,
find
the
the
whispers, you
orb,
mean? Yeah.
right? The whispers we start hearing, and it's like echoes below. You hear it saying, "Is he the chosen one? Is he the chosen one?" Saying twice, and you can't make out if it's like in the Morris episode he says that, but also some people thought that could have been Sam Witwer when he says that in Rebels, right?
Hmm.
With Anakin,
Oh,
or
yeah,
sorry,
yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
Obi
With
Wan,
Maul, okay.
with
Yeah.
Maul, right? And so I don't know if you saw recently Whitwer did say, I am indeed in this, and I cannot say anything more than what my role is in this. So clearly, it's something significant for him not to be commenting on it. I wouldn't surprise me, though, but we're going to jump through some moments that are very important in Clone Wars in live action. Like, don't be surprised that we
Yeah.
actually see live action Maul. We see live action, like we're saying, Obi-Wan and there. What if, Obed, we see the recreation of Revenge of the Sith? I'm going to say it right now, the Mustafar fight. And what if we see what would have happened if Ahsoka would have been there?
Hmm.
I'm just saying, man. I'm
Hmm.
throwing it out from now.
What if we get something crazy like? Do you remember the video game? I still have it. The Revenge of the Sith video game for
Yeah, that was good.
PS2. Do you
Yeah.
remember the alternate ending where Anakin actually wins and then he kills
Yes.
Palpatine and
Yes.
yeah, and becomes Emperor? Like what if, right? Like we're gonna like dude for what we know. The next episode could be a Star Wars what if like Marvel style episode. And
Wouldn't surprise me.
I would love that. I would love that. Right? It's like, what if Anakin would have done this? What if Ahsoka would have done this? And they, see what ripple effect it would have had on the present. So yeah,
And correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me if you agree with this. But in my the way I always interpreted with the World Between Worlds, when Ahsoka is pulled out in Rebels from that time before death, there still exists a reality where she did die because
yeah,
she was supposed to die.
yep.
We only see an alternate, almost like
It's
branching
a
off of
branching, yeah,
she's pulled off and now this new adventure happened. But at some point, she technically through the
yeah.
time did actually
There's
die.
already
So
branching continuities. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. So see, you agree with me on that. There's like
yeah.
there's an alternate where there already are
What
alternates. We
if
just haven't seen them happen.
what it? Oh,
Please.
I'm gonna throw one. What if the original trilogy is that continuity?
Exactly. Exactly.
And yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then now we're having, a different gun, ah, dude,
Wouldn't surprise me,
dude,
dude.
like, cause, yeah,
They're
yeah,
showing
I'm
this next
back.
episode.
I'm back. Star Wars
Next
is back.
episode is directed by Filoni. We knew it was going to be big because the episode 5 is directed by Dave. He only directed the first one. And he directed this one. Those are the only two he's done. The World Between Worlds one's coming up is directed by him, and they have announced they are showing it in theaters.
Yeah,
Very select. I tried to get tickets; it's already gone out real fast for that. But they are showing it in theaters. It has to be big. They have never done this before. Obed, we know there's got to be some confidence around. This is a moment for the fan base for sure. I mean, they invited fans out to Disneyland and Disney World, their areas to see this
yeah,
thing.
man.
There must be confidence around something very big that they have planned. And of all the characters to do it, Ahsoka saved franchises. Ahsoka does this. This could
Yeah,
be the
man.
one.
That could be, yeah. It could be the one. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited because it's good, and I'm happy, and it's Star Wars is back. You know,
Yeah,
I'm finally feeling love again for my number one favorite thing in the world. So, or when it comes to like entertainment and fiction and all that, it's like, again, Star Wars, my number one thing, is my favorite thing, and you know, could we see, so there was a theory out there. I can't remember exactly who I heard it from, that was saying that it could be that there may be plucking, or not necessarily plucking, like, characters during the World Between Worlds parts, but more of like bringing characters together and having their own like end game moment, like have Luke and Cal Kestis and everyone that's around, right, as in like a huge, battle,
yes,
and that's, again, that's
yes.
what we wanted to see. That's what we've always wanted to see. It's like all these
Imagine that
characters
there's the
back.
Dave movie. Imagine
Yeah,
that's the Dave movie where
yeah.
there's some type of
Honestly,
big moment and it's against Snoke or
Leia
something or
and
whatever
yeah,
it's supposed to be, and they're all in there, dude, in a bat of the Mandalorians, young Luke, all of
yeah,
them fighting.
yeah, yeah, man. I don't want to get too excited. You know how
I
it
know,
is. You know how I
I
am.
know.
I don't get too excited, but it's pointing to some good stuff. So we'll wait and see.